Welcome to this episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I am your host, founder, and executive director of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes. Thank you for tuning in, whether by audio or by video. We are reaching 50 countries, 500 cities, as well as having our show broadcast right here in Northeast Ohio on Spectrum Channel 1021, Hudson Community Television, or you can check out the Hudson Community Television Facebook page or website to tune in as well. And with this episode, this is a continuation from last week's episode. So we have part 2 of our conversation with Chaplain Yancey, who is a licensed bishop with the Church of God in Cleveland, Tennessee. He served as minister since 2003. He is also an Army chaplain, and he brings that spiritual leadership and military service to his role. He has an undergraduate degree from Lee University, and he has furthered his theological education at Pentecostal Theological Seminary. So we're going to see a continuation of part 1 of our conversation, and we hope you enjoy. Thanks again, everybody, for catching us on part 2 of our episode with Chaplain Yancey. Again, he is a licensed bishop with the Church of God in Cleveland, Tennessee, has served as a minister since 2003. He's also an Army chaplain, which again brings that really unique blend of spiritual leadership and military service to his role. He holds an undergraduate degree from Lee University and has also furthered his theological education at the Pentecostal Theological Seminary. So, Chaplain Yancey, thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. So we were just having a conversation towards the tail end of part 1 about the impact of mental health and suicide, how that has impacted the role and the roles that you have as a chaplain and in the military, and how us as individuals, whether we're in the military or not, if we think of ourselves and give ourselves that similar self-worth that we may give to others, that would be a good starting point.
Yeah.
As we move to have that education around the suicide awareness, that even before that, us as individuals, that we and I'm speaking from my experience. Once I decided to open up and take kind of the dominoes of all the different things that I had penned up in my mind and in my head, and once I made that decision, it was one of the hardest decisions I made to be I guess volunteer myself and not be pink slipped into one of the psych wards for 5 days at Akron General Hospital. And that day it was hard because I had thought that I knew all the answers, that I could handle everything. I'm a guy. I can. I'm not supposed to cry. I'm not supposed to. Just supposed to just power through things. And if it wasn't for that day when I decided, well, again, to that higher power that we spoke of in the previous episode in part 1, whether we believe in God, a creator, or higher power, we need to understand that there is a higher something that is watching over. And when we get to that point where we understand a little bit better that as humans we can't control everything, and we really just need to like I said, just have some of that compassion for
Mhm.
ourselves. Like it's okay to be stressed out. It's
Yeah,
okay. I I can work on this tomorrow,
yeah,
potentially, depending on
yeah.
what it is. So maybe you just pick the conversation up from there.
Yeah. No, I think falling back on 12 steps, they do a lot of things right in that community. Accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think when we're living life, there's a lot of things that we cannot change, right? But how we respond, even situation in the middle of, how we respond to the situation is one of the things we can change, right? Am I
Mhm.
going to allow this to take me out of my core, who I am? And the problem is that who are we at the core? And we have to be able to sit down with ourselves, push out the conversations of everybody telling us who we are. And we have to come to that idea of, or that acceptance of who we are. So for many years, I'm a type A personality, right? A lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about type A personalities. But there are some good things, and I have to get them good things, right? And for many years, I would focus on some of the negative things that come with type A personalities, right? So we're quick to react, we're quick to make decisions. That's just something we do. We get in the middle of it and we figure out the problems as we go. We don't really take a lot of time to evaluate the situation. We just jump in the middle of it and then we kind of work from there. We work in chaos fine. Chaos doesn't bother us any as long as we're doing something. We'd rather be in the middle of a chaotic situation than sitting back and waiting to figure out when we can do it. We don't like complacency. We don't like any of that. So there could be bad things, but with that type of personality. But I for many years I focused on that, and with the reality that I could change that. And there's some things we could smooth out, but who you are at the core is who you are, and that's who God made you to be. Um, this doesn't give us permission to not love our neighbor. It doesn't give us permission to be rude. It doesn't give us permission to do all that. What I mean by who you are and you can't really change that at the core, that's as a genuine, caring, loving individual. So that's not eliminating care and love and concern from a type A personality and say you could be rude and you could be upfront and that's just your personality. No, that's not. That's an escape to letting you not love someone else and not respect other people around you. I'm just saying that the things I was trying to fix,
Mhm.
um, apart from that, is maybe would take away the benefit of my personality. That if you're around a type A person, they're always going to be, they're going to be trying to be productive. They're going to
Yeah.
be going forward. They're going to move that ball forward, no matter if they know the right way or they think they know the right answer, they're going to move it forward. And accepting that in me, but also knowing my shortcomings, allow me to just understand me a little bit more. And I think that self journey is huge.
Mhm.
Like when we get to that place where them intrusive thoughts is telling us more about who we are than we're telling ourselves who we are, we're in trouble, right? So from a Christian perspective, like Jesus had to understand when he was in the desert with the devil that God was going to apply his needs. If the devil could convince him that turning these rocks into bread was the best situation for him and that God wasn't watching out for him no more and he had to feed himself and rely on himself, then that would completely destroy his ministry later on because in his ministry, Jesus was always saying, I only do what my father's told me to do. So if he took the power out of the father's hand then, he would continue to take it out of the father's hand through his ministry. So the same way in our lives, if we let them intrusive thoughts come in and dictate to us who we are, then it's going to keep on telling us who we are. It's going to keep telling us we're a failure. It's going to keep telling us our shortcomings. It's going to keep telling us all that if we don't hold to the fact of who we are. Okay, yeah, you're right. I did mess up there, but I tell you what, these are the things I did do good. I'm a loving brother, or I'm a loving father, or I'm good at this in my job. I might be that, but search for them good things. Them things you could stand on that. No, even if you fail, even if the day don't go well, listen, I'm still going to care for others. I'm still not gonna, I don't call names to people because I understand what it feels like to be called a name. So I don't call people names. I don't do things that are out, and I know that I will never do that because I know how it makes me feel. So these things, search for these things, because that's who makes you up, who you are. It's not that voice in your head telling you what you're not. It's the you looking at yourself and telling yourself who you are. And that voice doesn't have power over you. You don't have to give it power. However you look at that voice, I look at it as the enemy. But however you look at that voice, it doesn't have power. Even if you're going through addiction, right?
Hmm.
So addiction a lot of times is used for coping skills, but it also could be, you just experimented with it and you got addicted to a substance. But you're not the addiction. You're still somebody's son. You're somebody's daughter. You're somebody's dad. There's love and care and concern for you. You're not your failures. And I think the biggest thing is that if we allow our failures and intrusive thoughts, all this stuff to pile up and tell us who we are, then we get in a place where it feels like we're in a hole and we're in there by ourselves. And you don't deserve to be in a hole. God didn't create you to be in a hole. He didn't create you to beat yourself up all the time. God's not beating you up, right? He's not giving you, hey, here's a bar. When you meet it, I love you. No, the Bible says that he loved us while we were still sinners. So there's no bar that you have to meet for the creator God to love you and care for you. In the same way, there's no bar. If you have people in your life that's creating this bar that says, oh, once you get here, I'll love you, when they don't really love you anyways. Right? If you have family that's saying, once you create, no. They can put boundaries if somebody's dealing with addiction and maybe they don't want you to come into their house because you don't rob them 5 times. That's fine. But they can still love you and not want you to come into their house while you're alone and stuff. There are boundaries, and that's okay for people to have, but it doesn't mean they don't love you and care for you. I don't know. I think all that, that's a whole lot, right? When we talk
Yeah.
about destruction and we talk about the enemy, he comes at us to kill, steal, and destroy a lot of different ways. And I don't know. I think it's going to take somebody's own personal narrative
Hmm.
to speak into what's trying to destroy you. But grab hold of that narrative, pinpoint it, journal it, get it in writing where you know what you're fighting against. You know, have ammunition, to fight against these intrusive thoughts. Don't let this record player that seems broken to keep on dictating to you how you should feel about yourself. It doesn't have power. It doesn't. And from your army chaplain, I give you the
Yeah.
permission to not let these voices dictate to you who you are, because it's just not true. If I believed
Hmm.
everything I heard in my head, I'd never be here today. With somebody, a dyslexic, going all the way through school, teachers telling me the best they can do is try to get me past the third grade reading level. Like, if I believed all that, I definitely wouldn't be here today. Am I still nervous in classes? Yes. Yes. Right. Did it take a lot for me to get through school? Yes, it did. That stuff didn't go away, guys.
Hmm.
I didn't miraculously not be dyslexic overnight. Still here, 39 years old, still dyslexic. But that's okay,
Yeah.
right? Have I beat it? No, right? And when we're talking about mental health, right? Do I still have down days? Yeah, right. So if you're talking to somebody that deals with depression, do I still get depression? Yeah, but you came through it before, right?
Yeah.
Um, you come through it again. Just hold on. Make that commitment to yourself, not to harm yourself, and hold on. Grab hold of the community around you, support, knowing that there's better days to come. Your emotions will be better. Situation might not change, right? Tragedy, you can't undo tragedy, can't undo loss, but you'll get through it, and you'll do a lot better getting through it if you have a community to support around you, bro.
And I think that's a key. Once we, I guess, internalize and realize that there are the things that we need to talk about, that that thought, like, scary. Like, wait a minute, like, I'm not going to share these personal
Yeah.
thoughts or what have you. That was one of the big things for me, was my ego was in the way of not only, well, I can take care of this, but uh, oh, I nobody's gonna understand me.
Yeah.
I'm the only one like this. I'm the
The
only
only
one
one. Yeah.
going through this.
Yeah.
And that day, I guess the following day that I voluntarily admitted myself, I was
Yeah.
sitting around 10 or 11 other people,
Mm,
and we went around, hey, what brings you here? And,
mhm,
if you're there, like, there's good reason for you to be there.
mhm,
And when I heard that each individual story, it, their stories were not all exactly like mine, but they
mhm.
were similar enough to go, wait a minute, Justin,
Yeah.
that it's not, you're not the only one going through this. You may be going through this piece and this piece. There's other individuals. There's an individual who tried to take his life, and he had casts on both of his arms because he was trying to harm himself. And I was like, whoa, like this is serious. And here's me like thinking, woe is me going into that situation of like, oh, like it, it, I need to fix myself, and all those thoughts, and some of those thoughts were coming from, and we can talk about social media and those types of aspects, but some of those thoughts were coming from me just constantly being on my phone, like
Yeah.
searching this, searching that, and I was so far deep in my head that I was finding myself not eating meals,
Yeah.
and so my weight started to decrease. Then once I started to realize that, then once I tried to eat, I was feeling like I was, best thing is feel like I was allergic to everything.
Mm,
Like, oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat this, I
mm.
can't eat this. I was down to eating carrots and plain hummus, just,
That's crazy.
and
Yeah.
it was out of control.
A lot.
Uh, and so I would say to, anybody out there that
Yeah.
is kind of going through things, like, yeah, like it's hard to,
Yeah.
kind of swallow the pride. Even when
Yeah.
my therapist recommended, as I had written one book on kind of career preparation, advancement,
Yeah.
for teaching, and he had asked me, he said, do you want to write? Maybe you should write one about, your mental health, kind of your mental health
Mhm.
journey. And I was like, oh, I can't do that because
Yeah.
there were family members that weren't privy to some of the
Yeah.
information. We had to kind of
Yeah.
smooth over why Justin was in the hospital for 5 days.
Mm,
And I finally swallowed my pride on that too. Like,
yeah.
maybe I should, like, because I
Yeah.
was at that point that even though I was recovering, I was constantly asking myself, what am I here for? Like,
Yeah.
what is there left for me to do? I always had goal after goal after goal, and at that
Mm,
point, I went through all the education that I could, got my MBA. I
yeah.
accomplished a lot traveling wise, relationships,
Mm,
and I was like, well, what else is there? And
mm,
I decided, well, okay, well, let me do this, but I'm going to have a ghostwriter name. I'm not going to use my own name because I can't let people know that not they don't know what's happened about that they read this book and they're like my son-in-law, and so
yeah.
that happened, and so I just followed my pride, and he said, Justin, like, how are you going to promote it? How are you going to
Yeah.
talk about it if it's just John Smith instead of Justin Hayes? And those pieces that I have experience in, and I still experience time to
Yeah.
time, uh, it really makes a lot of sense with what you're saying. There's up days, there's down days.
Yeah.
Just take it one minute, one
Yeah.
instant at a time. Like
Yeah.
one of my
Moment.
other therapists said, I'm safe, I'm okay right
Mm,
now.
yeah.
Maybe not the next
Mm,
instant or the next
yeah.
minute, but right now I am safe and I'm okay. And 7 years later, I've remembered that from that counselor, and I
Mm,
use that a little bit as a coping. Like, okay, I'm safe, I'm okay. Like you said, I've gotten
mm,
through things before.
yeah.
I'll continue to do the best I can, but to know that I do have worth, and there are things that if I'm still on earth, there's still
Yeah.
things that God wants me to do. I don't know what
Yeah.
those are, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't be here if there wasn't.
Yeah, I think yeah, and that having that sense of purpose, even when you was going through them hard times, in what you're doing now, reflecting back on the 12 steps. The 12 steps is about carrying that message on, and what you're doing now is creating in the book you wrote, creating a space for
Mm-hmm.
people to be okay with themselves. And sitting around the 12-step table for the first time, I finally, like you said, we get into our heads about I'm the only like one like this. I'm the only one that dealing with this. And coming to the reality that your experience is really not that unique,
Mm-hmm.
and the enemy doesn't have any real new tactics. And he's just fighting with us in an isolated field, which we were never meant to be on by ourselves. Carrying this message to the people around us, and the ones that are struggling, that you're not alone. And so I sitting around the 12-step table for the first time, I finally felt that I was accepted in the middle of my brokenness. And if we could bring that, people that maybe never even get to a 12-step table, or maybe even never get to an evaluation, a mental health evaluation, it doesn't mean they don't need it. It just means they never got there.
Right.
But us being able to carry that message and be that support for healing, can be there for people that maybe don't have access, or are not in the mental health space to reach out for that access, reach out for that support. So, I think what you're doing here, and what you're going to continue to do, is going to provide a lot of healing. And that's what all I could do as an army chaplain is come
Mm-hmm.
in with who God's made me to be. I can't be another chaplain. I can't be this chaplain or that chaplain. And you can't be another you. Like, you are the gift that God has given the people that are in your sphere of influence. And I say to you and anyone else
Mm-hmm.
to be that gift, right? Be that gift that God's created you to be in the sphere of influence you have. It could be a gift for your family, it could be a gift for your local community, but just live in that and know that you are a gift. And what you say is important, how you treat others is important. You don't always have to just wait for someone to reach out to you. Be that bridge of help and support for someone else. And it's amazing how when you become that bridge, it starts to be that bridge for yourself, because when you're helping, it's hard to isolate, right?
Yeah.
When you're giving back, it's hard to feel alone, because you start getting in the fight with others, you know?
Yeah. As we wrap up the second episode, time just seems to go quick.
Mhm.
Having these good conversations. As far as resources, how can individuals uh, learn, or they're ready to reach out? How and where would you recommend, knowing that we don't have all the answers?
Yeah,
Because if somebody's going through a rough patch and they're like, okay,
yeah,
I've had it with what's going on. I'm ready now.
yeah.
What type of recommendations,
Mm.
or pointing in the direction would you be able to help with?
Yeah. I think I think it all depends on what you're struggling with, right? But I'm a chaplain, so I'm always going to direct people to the local church. But I think the strongest community I ever seen, active, um, which I haven't been exposed to all of them,
Mhm.
is the 12-step community. The thing with 12-step community is that you have alcohol, you have NA, you have SA, with sexaholics. You have open groups. So any open group, even if it's AA and it's an open group, you could go in there if you don't even have an addiction and you
Mhm.
just want to be around a supportive group. Your local hospitals usually have some kind of suicidal ideation group. Support group, grief recovery groups. A lot of these groups meet online too. So a quick search in your local area for these groups can be beneficial, but get plugged in. Like when I talk about a local church, I'm not throwing a dart at a wall.
Right.
There's different types of churches. So there's churches that are community based and community focused that will be integrated with your local support systems and your hospitals and stuff. And they're really in Akron. I would
Hmm.
say that you start looking at churches that have a lot of outreach programs. And these are people that will know resources in the area. But a quick
Hmm.
Google search can find you the local 12 step. And you're just looking for, even if you're not an
Hmm.
alcoholic, you're looking for that
Yeah.
open part. where you're able to come in and facilitate or just sit there and listen. You don't have to say anything. And especially if you're feeling lonely and you're feeling isolated, go to an open meeting. Like,
Hmm.
just go to an open meeting and listen to people tell their stories. And I think that because you could pretty much find an open meeting every day of the week.
Hmm.
And I know, so if we got a counselor, we got this kind of resources, the medical, but they're a time frame, right?
Yeah.
They're waiting for an appointment. And I think one of the things we don't have in mental health are like open meetings, where you can
Yeah.
find somewhere to go every night. And in Akron, I know you could find somewhere to go every night. And the
Hmm.
biggest thing when somebody's dealing with mental health, I think, is not letting yourself isolate. And that's the biggest thing with addiction too. So there's a lot of connection between the two communities. Is not letting yourself isolate. So you might not be able to find a church that's
Hmm.
open every night. You might not be able to find a mental health that's open every night, but I guarantee you can find a 12 step. And they have virtual. If you feel uncomfortable, they have
Hmm.
virtual groups now that you can just join online just by going to aa.com and getting or ai.org or something like that. Just search up AA, Alcoholics
Hmm.
Anonymous, and their main page will come up. I think it's a .org.
Hmm.
But I think it is a real good place to start, even for non-addicts. Celebrate Recovery in your area
Yeah.
too, but I know local churches have, a lot of them have stopped, discontinued that because um, I think it's ran its course in some communities
Hmm.
because it doesn't have the same staying power as a 12 step. Because everybody in 12 steps understand that there's no end to it. And
Right.
how Celebrate Recovery works on a certain week model, it almost felt like there was an end to it.
Oh.
But people that are in 12 step communities understand there's no period to the end of your recovery.
Hmm.
So,
Right.
so I
And
would say start there. Yeah.
I think that's a huge message. Is there is it's not like you break a leg or
Mm.
something physical like that where surgery or
Yeah.
what have you. You can tell when that something is healed.
Yeah.
But these the things we're talking about,
Yeah.
they come and they go.
Yeah.
Sometimes longer, sometimes shorter.
Yeah.
We might be doing great for a month, and then we
Yeah.
have a couple days that we're just
Mhm.
really down. And I think that's important. That I've even come across with family, friends, colleagues of
Mhm.
like, oh, Justin, you're doing great. Look,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, and then like you were mentioning, like I
Yeah.
like to stay busy, so
Yeah.
it's like, if as long as I have
Yeah.
something to do, then
Yeah.
we're good. I'm moving
Yeah.
moving the ball forward, and
Mhm.
uh, that, and I think just understand this, being supportive, that if somebody is a family member, somebody knows somebody that is potentially going through something, just
Yeah.
listen. And
Mhm.
it you don't have to bring up, exactly what, the verbiage on mental health and, oh,
Yeah.
you should be diagnosed and all that. Just listen, like, hey,
Just listen.
what are you up to? Oh, I'm watching the game. Oh, what? Just
Yeah.
have a human interaction, human connection.
Yeah.
A- And like you had mentioned with each night of the week potentially, or
Yeah.
finding who has what meeting
Yeah.
when. That's something that I wish I would have done
Yeah.
before I had the crash. Um, but I wasn't ready for it. Like
Mm.
I wasn't past my ego. I wasn't
Yeah.
past that. I've had it. It wasn't until the hospital did, and I was like, all right, like I don't know
Yeah.
if I'm going to make it if I don't do this. Like I'm not dying right this minute,
Yeah.
but maybe I again that whole waiting period. Oh, I got to wait a
Yeah.
month to see somebody. Like
Yeah. The waiting period
what's
is
gonna
real.
it's real.
Overbooked in mental health is the same way as overbooked in a regular doctor appointment. Like, it happens the same in the military. It's sad.
Mm,
Yeah. I think community is where we're at, right? You said.
yeah.
So if we could have them and just be that listening ear and not worry about if they're going to get diagnosed, let somebody else handle that. But I think that's sometimes a cop out. Hey, you
Hmm.
need to go see somebody about it. That might be true, but while you're telling them they need to go see somebody, you be that person they're seeing now, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we've it, it unfortunately hit our
Yeah,
mark for
I
the
understand.
two episodes. I just I can't thank you enough again to your
Yeah,
service
mm,
to the country, and then obviously the Army community as
mm,
chaplain, and even just being on our show and sharing
mm.
as transparent as can be is helpful to get other perspectives of like,
Yeah,
wow, this stuff doesn't have to be scary. Like
yeah,
we're just regular people. Or
just bring the
don't
people.
yeah, we're just like I said, going one moment at a time, one step at
Yeah,
a time, one day.
yeah,
It may look like we're doing good today, but maybe
yeah.
tomorrow, maybe not. Uh,
And you just call me on a good day, right?
Absolutely. So, Chaplain Yancey, thank you again for being on two episodes with
Uh-huh.
us, and we will definitely stay in touch, and we will be putting this out to our audiences in February. So we'll get
Mm,
that information to you the closer we get to that.
yeah.
And until next time, thank you again for dealing with the calendar and the different
You're
systems
good.
and all that. We got it together. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. All right,
So,
brother.
yep.
Thanks.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you for tuning in to our episode, part two, with Chaplain Yancey. We found both parts, part one and part two of our conversations, very eye opening. Being able to get Chaplain Yancey's experience in the military and as being the the spiritual side as well, and then being able to just talk as a transparent individual of challenges that he has been through, as well as helping others, and how his interest came to be with now being that Army chaplain. So if you are interested in learning more about that, we would refer you to the great Internet of Things. Checking out Google, but more importantly, we're talking about the spiritual side, the Pentecostal Theological Seminary. So that would probably be where we'd point you first. Check out that website, that program, and see if that might be something that is for you or for somebody that you may know. So until next time, I am your host, founder, and executive director of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes. And until then, we hope that you are a voice for you or somebody in need.